Let's make some noise. Come on.
As always, thank you, Mr. Nick Foles. And yes, let's make some noise, everybody. Welcome back to the final word here with MattyB on the It's a Wrap Sports Network, our Thursday edition, our final broadcast of the week, which wasn't supposed to be a broadcast, but due to some scheduling conflicts, I had to push the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn till Monday, but that's okay. You get me any way you look at it. And tonight we're going to close the door on a few things. We're going to open up some things as well, as we will get into the hottest topics in your Philadelphia sports day. And, of course, this is the final word of those. And tonight, that's right, we're going to talk Eagles schedule. It's out, man. It's time. It's here. And as the schedule of this show, or as the title of the show indicates, it's time for positivity, because this is a cake of a schedule, man. I don't even know why the team shows up this year. They should just get a free pass on into Super Bowl 60. That's what it should be. Like the All Valley Karate Championship, right? When you win it, you get an automatic spot in the final or semifinals or something, or quarterfinals. I think the Eagles should have the same privilege bestowed upon them as Ralph Macchio did back in Karate Kid Part 3. But we're going to talk that, because it's not going to be an easy ride for the Birds to capture or recapture Super Bowl glory, even though some of the homers out there want you to think 15-2, 14-3 are possibilities. Now, I said the same thing last year. I said there's no way this team is going to go when I heard the same bombastic 15-2, 14-3 predictions. I said there's no way. This team is just not, I think, deep enough, doesn't have enough skill, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And they showed me, didn't they? And we entered this season in a similar position than we did last year. And I don't understand how that happens to a defending Super Bowl champion. How are we talking about the same things? Or I should say, how are the same things supposed to be talked about, but are not being talked about because of the fact that we won the Super Bowl? But there are some of the similar problems of last year, or concerns. They're not problems yet, but concerns this year that there were last year on this team, and then mainly in the defense. Are the Eagles as good as they were last year on defense, or have they taken a step backwards? So we're getting into the Eagles schedule. We're also going to talk about your new Flyers head coach. Rick Tocchet is the man of the hour. The Flyers have made it official. He is 25th now head coach in Flyer history, as he'll take over the reins, and we'll get into some of Tocchet and what that might mean for this team going forward. Maybe we'll talk about the Phillies. I don't know. We've pretty much hit on that. It's kind of nice having a day off today, not having to worry about that. But if you want to bring up the Phillies, of course, we will talk your day in Philadelphia sports history. We're also going to continue our worst trades in Phillies history. We're up to number 8 on our list. And the of the night segment and our card review, all that in a nice compressed, hopefully 1 hour show. We'll see. I'm not rushing, but we'll see. Barbara chiming in right off the bat. Barbara leading off tonight. Oh my God, you're on tonight. I saw the Eagles show was canceled. It was not canceled, postponed to a different day. We're going to try to get it off on Monday. I made the move to postpone it because of my schedule, not Kyle. So I just want you all know out there that it wasn't his fault. It was mine that we had to move it. But if you're not, Barbara, we will get it in on Monday. So Monday, there'll be no final word, but we'll have the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn on Monday. All right. So without further ado, before I get started, I know there's another show happening on the network as we speak. Pat is wrapping up the Attacking Third. I think he's wrapping it up. I don't know. He's been droning on for like an hour and a half. I don't know what he's doing over there. But if you're just kind of seeing me pop up, never fear. Man, we can run simultaneous shows on this network. It's my network. We can do what we want. Or I can do what I want. So, but make sure you're checking out the Attacking Third. Put those dual screens on those computers going, and make sure you're checking out both of us. But let's strap it in, strap it on, strap it up. Put your head, hands, and feet inside the car at all time, and let's roll with our program tonight. First and foremost is our day in Philadelphia sports history, all the way back to the ripe year of 1984. Because on this day in 1984, arguably, I don't think there's much of an argument. The Flyers' greatest player in team history, Bobby Clark, called it quits from his 15-year NHL career. Spent entirely with the Flyers. I know he spent a little bit of time somewhere else. He could have probably still played. His skill set was not, I think he could have still played, but another opportunity was nipping at his heels. So he decided to take it. And that opportunity was to transition right from player to GM of the Flyers. Bobby Clarke would take over as the GM of the Flyers starting in the 84-85 season and has success, kind of. His first year in the seat, the Flyers went to the Stanley Cup Finals out of nowhere, really. They kind of showed up on the scene and made a magical run, had a great 84-85 season, and made a Stanley Cup run. Lost it to in 5, I believe, or 4 to the Oilers. He also got back there in 87. Again, this time also against the Oilers, falling this time in 7 games. He was then relieved or quit and went on down to Florida to kind of head up the expansion Panthers for a minute, and then he returned, or was it Minnesota? He went somewhere. I think it was Minnesota or Florida. Then returned during the Eric Lindros years, and once again found some success in 96-97, leading the Flyers back to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Detroit Red Wings, again falling short of the ultimate prize. A lot of people hang the Flyers' struggles, the beginning of the Flyers' true era of struggling, on Bobby Clarke. And this is where the mystique of not hiring former players kind of comes into play. This is not necessarily to laud his career as a GM. He had a lot of success in that position, but not the ultimate success, not the success we wanted, and that was Stanley Cup championships. We got there a few times under his tutelage. We have not returned. We've only returned 1 time since then, and it was not under Bobby Clarke. So maybe there's something to the fact that Bobby Clarke, who took this team as GM 3 times to the Stanley Cup Finals, losing all 3 times, mind you, but it's not really necessarily to laud his achievements as a GM. It's to laud the achievements of a 15-year playing career as not arguably the best player in Flyer franchise history. He is the best player in Flyer franchise history. Obviously, a poster boy of the most successful period of Flyer history, those Stanley Cup years, and then the few years that followed that, where they were still one of the perennial teams in the league. And there's no mistake in that. And there's absolutely no mistake in that. And a close, or not so much a close second, but a distance of second, maybe Eric Lindros, but no player has ever had the impact that Bobby Clarke has had on the team before and obviously since. So on this night back in 1984, Bobby Clarke decides enough's enough. I ain't playing anymore. And then I'm going to go right into the seat as your GM. And of course, I believe his number was retired like the beginning of the next season. The Flyers shot number 16 up to the rafters. No one would ever wear that again. And then the Hall of Fame would come calling right after that as well. So Bobby Clarke's playing career ended on this day in 1984. And that was your day in Philadelphia sports history, brought to you by the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn. Yeah, that's right. We're going to promo it, even though it wasn't on tonight. Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, the quintessential and Eagle pregame show entertainment. It will air every Thursday or Friday or maybe even Saturday, somewhere in the latter part of your football week during the football season, where we will review the game that was and preview the game that's coming up. So make sure you find it on your dial. Make sure you find it, you like it, you subscribe it, you put the little notification bell on so you can see me and Kyle have some fun with this. We been doing it. It'll be coming up on our 6th year doing this program. So it's been a lot of fun spending the last 6 seasons with Kyle Quinn, and we will start it up season 6 unofficially on Monday night when Kyle will pay a visit, and we'll get things rolling for the 2025 season. So make sure you're tuned in to the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn and yours truly. I am the other side of that show. I know I don't put myself on the graphic, or I don't even put myself in the title, but I'm the other part. I'm the most important part. Let's face it. So I guess we can use either the Flyers or the Eagles as a segue. Let's throw up a coin, and I'm going to go ahead and let's segue now with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're gonna do some Eagles talk tonight because it's the big story of the week. It's schedule release time, and the Eagles' schedule has dropped along with the other NFL football teams out there, and it's time now to now I'll say overreact, overhype maybe the situation. When you take a look at the schedule, everyone wants to play prognosticator. Of course, I'm going to play prognosticator too. But the reality of the whole schedule prediction, it's sort of a fruitless endeavor. I mean, you're basing your predictions off of what happened in 2024 because that's all we can base it off of. We can't base off of things that are not yet have happened. And in football, I find it, at least in the NFL, it's one of the most quicker type of changing sports that we have. A team can very easily go from last place to Super Bowl champion in 1 year in the NFL. That's how drastic and how lightning fast those changes can occur. So sitting here in May of 2025 saying that the Eagles are going to trounce and kick the butt out of the Chicago Bears on Black Friday, based primarily or purely off of what happened with the Bears and Eagles last season, is what everyone's going to go on. And I'm going to, of course, use that same metrics, but I'm going to look at it a little deeper because you got to expect everyone to get a little bit better. And you got to look hardcore at the Eagles as well. The schedule is not easy. It's the fourth hardest in the NFL. But if you're asking me, it's very reminiscent of the 2023 schedule. Very reminiscent of that. Except in this schedule, the tough games are throughout. In 2023, they were pretty much condensed into a 6-week window where they had to kind of go from one perennial to the next. And actually did pretty well through that gauntlet, but it did take a toll on the team because it led to a collapse at the end. But this schedule, there's landmines throughout. And it starts right off the bat in week 1, and then it doesn't really ever stop. There's a lull a little bit kind of midway through, and then it picks right back up again throughout the rest of the season. So to sit here and say 15-2, is that? I mean, come on, that's not even realistic. Not even on a not even on a good day. It's realistic. So we're going to try to be realistic here. I'm going to try to provide you what I think, based on my metrics, and I will explain the metrics as we move through this, of how the Philadelphia Eagles will do in 2025. Might surprise you. It might not surprise you. Might piss you off. I'm sure it's going to piss you off because, I'm going to tell you like it is. I never hold back. But let's get it rolling here. So let's pull it up. There it is. Here's your 2025 Philadelphia Eagles schedule. Most of these games, or a good chunk of these games, were pre-leaked. But now we know all the stuff in between. And I believe I did the rough count yesterday or today. What is there? 9 games that are played on Sunday, not necessarily 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, but on Sunday during the daytime. And that's actually pretty impressive. I thought those numbers were going to be a little bit lower. And the fact that the Eagles got 9 games on Sunday, I can definitely live with. I'm digging all that. I like that. I'm just not I know there's a lot of primetime games to be expected from this team because you're the Super Bowl champion and they go right off the bat at home against Dallas. We've already kind of talked about ad nauseum how I think that's just a total waste of a game for the Eagles that you would want to have really at the end. When you have the Bills Commanders to wrap up the season, I'd have liked to have had another home game somewhat pushed in there, to kind of soften that blow a little bit. And the Cowboy home game would have been nice, but it's not yet to be. So the overview of that is there are primetime games, and that's to be expected. And there's a lot of them, but there's not as many as I thought. And that's a good news thing for the Eagles, because one of the things I've heard wrapping around here lately is the fact that the Eagles are going to be victims of an unorthodox or irregular schedule in terms of trying to get into some sort of comfort zone or get into a groove or get into a routine because of all the primetime games. And honestly, there's a big stretch of games where it's nothing but Sundays and there's some sprinkled out with primetime. So I think the NFL did them a solid favor there. I really did. Let's kind of get into this, and we are going to go game by game, and I am going to give you a score, or not score. I'm going to give you a win or loss. And then at the end of this, I'm going to give you my record. I don't typically do this till August, even though in August it's as fruitless as it is in May. But I said to hell with it. Let's throw caution to the wind, and I will go and we will do some. We'll give it out now because I don't see it changing for me as much throughout the season. I'll let you on a little secret, Birds Blast related. Every week, me and Kyle will pick a winner of the said Eagles game for that week. We say it's Eagles or whoever, and then that's how, and we keep track of that. I keep track of that for the season and see who did the best and who had the most success at picking the games every week. But I make my selections. I go through the schedule at some point, not typically this early, but I later on in the summer after training camp is over with, after the preseason ends. So the teams are pretty much solid or what they are going to be. And I go through game by game assigning a win-loss. And I don't change it throughout the rest of the season. I don't. And I don't know if that's stupid or smart or if it's just being stubborn, because Kyle does it the smart way. He picks a game, and then as the weeks go on, he picks games based on changing data, and things are kind of trending the different way, injuries, all the other things that factor into a team winning and losing. I don't. I make one big blanket win-loss prediction, and I stick with it all year long. Last year, I had the Eagles at 8-9, and obviously they were not 8-9, and I completely got my butt spacked in our pick'em segment last year. But I'm not going to back off of that. I still believe, even though there's a lot of changes that happen year to year in the NFL, I mentioned, I think the NFL is one of the more, the quicker turnaround type sports in the country, where you can go from the outhouse to the penthouse in literally 1 year. And it's probably the easier of all the sports to do that. You could still, there's still enough historical data about a team, in my opinion, to make, good guesstimates, because that's all this is a big old guesstimate. So let's get ready. Let's get rocking and let's get rolling on it. But this is the schedule in its glory, and we're going to go game by game. Barbara, how are you tonight? Good that you showed up. Eagles might be favored in every game against KC. I disagree. I don't think that's true. And let's have some fun with this, Barbara. Let's go through it. So Dallas, week 1. Super Bowl rings, Super Bowl banner, prime time, only game in town. All the eyes are going to be on Philadelphia, and the Eagles are going to come out and play the Dallas Cowboys. And I think the Eagles will win this game hands down. I don't see the Eagles losing this game, but I don't think it's going to be a clean win. I expect the season to start off a lot like it did last year, because we're in a similar position this year than we were last year, for God's sakes. We're once again starting over at offensive coordinator. No one's talking about that anymore either. Before, that was the big scapegoat of why the Eagles suffered or struggled down the stretch. But now, not talking about that. But we're going into another new offensive coordinator. Maybe not a new offensive system, but definitely a new offensive coordinator. Whatever they do for the team. And how does that dynamic change? Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio, they were in charge of their sides of the ball. Is Nick Sirianni going to be more involved in the offense this year because of Kevin Padula? Is that how you say his name, right? How does that affect the Eagles this season? Now you're moving away from an experienced NFL coordinator and you're going with another unknown, even though he was the quarterback's coach and he understands, I guess, what they're trying to do. But how does that change the dynamic of the coaches? Because for whatever Nick Sirianni did for the Eagles, and if I don't know either, if somebody's in the inside and is in the know, please tell me what he actually did on the sidelines. But whatever that was, is that going to be the same way in 2025, or does he take more of a hands-on approach with the offense because of a new young coordinator? So that is a factor on the offensive side of the ball. The other factor for me, and I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face or green in the face, whatever, it's the defense. The defense has the same questions 1 year later that I had about them a year ago. We lost a lot on the defense. And again, a lot of the Howie apostles and the irrational Eagle fans, the homers, they're wishing all that away like it's no big deal. We lost 6 contributors off that defense. Six people that played a lot to do with the success of the Eagle defense. How do you overlook that? How do you just kind of bat an eye and say, we'll be all right? We'll be all right. We replaced them with a bunch of Class B free agents and a bunch of draft picks. How do you wish that away? How do you think that that's going to be a seamless transition? You also have problems going into the season with the linebackers. Nakobe Dean probably won't be ready. Jihad Campbell may not be ready because he's dealing with a shoulder injury. Zach Baun might be on a mountain by himself. And how does Zach Baun react to that? Zach Baun really, really benefited last year, I think, a lot more by the presence of the front four than anything else. Does that change? And now Zach Bond's going to be on an island by himself with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So how does that affect the Eagle defense? The Eagle defense was on another plane for the 3/4 of the season last year, another plane of existence. And they were the number one reason why this team won a Super Bowl in my mind. And if they cannot maintain the level that they had last year, they slipped just a little bit down. To me, that means no Super Bowl. And I think heading into the season, the defensive questions are the same as they were last year. Now, again, the Super Bowl trophy makes those questions a little bit more easier to take, I guess, or easier to ignore, to think that it's going to be okay. We're just going to start where we left off. That's not what's going to happen here. So even though there's going to be, to me, a lot of transition, and it's not going to be the prettiest football, I think the Eagles win week one. Well, one reason is because I think that the hype of the night, the adrenaline of the night, and I also think the Eagles are a better team than the Cowboys, and I will never pick the Dallas Cowboys to win ever. So all those factors lend into my prediction of the Eagles beating the Cowboys on opening night. So I'm starting off 1-0. 1-0. I really don't know anything about the new OC. He's the quarterback's coach, right? Kevin Padula. Am I saying that right? Is that the name? Is that how he says his name? I mean, kind of smacks a lot about what was it, Brian Johnson a couple years ago. It's the same type of situation, right? That homers will tell you no, but Joe Hale, what's going on, man? How are you today? I can see the Eagles winning 13 to 14 games. Joe, I'm about to school you tonight, man. I can't see that no matter how hard I squint. My main reason why the Eagles should be in good shape is because of the mediocre competition. I mean, we didn't even have the number one seed last year, but still played every playoff game at home. Yeah, listen, there is something to that, Barbara. But as I said, I've alluded to it a couple times. The NFL is a very quick turnaround, and teams have an opportunity. Now, whether or not they are smart and they make the right decisions and choices and bring in the right people, they have opportunities, probably more so in the NFL than they do in any other sport, to get it rolled around pretty quick. And you're right. There was a lot of bad football last year in this league. It was the Eagles, Chiefs, and then everybody else, essentially. You probably could put the Ravens and Bills up there too. But there was about 5 or 6 teams that made up the league. And the rest of everyone else was just, punching at each other, trying to pick off each other's table scraps. I agree, 100%. A lot of paper champions last year. Steelers, Packers, Minnesota. I mean, there's a lot of paper champions last year, and I agree with you there. But do you think it's going to be the same this year? I don't think you can hang a hat on that in May. You might be right, but you can't go into the season thinking that. And is that what Howie thought too? Is that why Howie's offseason was the way it was? Because he thought that even with lesser players, his lesser players are still better leaps and bounds than everybody else's players. That's sort of a very arrogant way to look at things. I don't necessarily think that's how he viewed the offseason, but I hope that's not how he did it. But 1-0, yeah, I got the Eagles winning that game. And again, because I hate the Cowboys and I'll never pick them to win anything. Joe says the first 3 games are winnable. So, good God, Joe. All right, so 1-0. Then we turn around and we head to Kansas City on week 2. Now, this is going to be, I think this is also Kansas City's home opener because aren't they like in Brazil or something like that week 1 or somewhere else? So this will be KC's home opener, and this will be their fans' first chance to see the Eagles and to sort of relive the Super Bowl 59 memories. And, a lot of people say that the Eagles have broken the Chiefs and that they've, they got their number now. I disagree. I disagree 100% because, again, to me, that Super Bowl was won on the backs of the defense. Now, if the defense can replicate their performance in Super Bowl 59, this will be a snooze fest for the Eagles to win. But if they cannot, you're still dealing with Pat Mahomes. You're still dealing with an elite team in the Kansas City Chiefs. And if your defense can't be at the same level as it was in Super Bowl 59, it's not going to be a snooze fest. It's going to be a very good game. And let's also remember that Steve Spagnuolo was the one who figured out how to stop Saquon Barkley. So how does that grab you going into week 2? I don't think the Eagles win this game. I think they go in smelling themselves a little bit, and I think they get humbled by a very good football team. And I got the Chiefs winning this game. And I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for the Chiefs. I think the Eagles learn a little bit of a lesson in humility heading out of Kansas City. And another side note to that game, the Phillies are in Kansas City that weekend too. So if you're looking for a trip to celebrate Philadelphia sports, head out to Kansas City, Missouri on the weekend of September the 14th. Check out some Phillies action and the Eagles. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I got them 101 through 2. Hurts has to improve at throwing the ball because we can't depend on the defense to win most of the games, again, especially the Super Bowl. And I doubt Barkley. Again, Barbara, I agree. And no one's talking about any of this. Everyone thinks that Jalen Hurts was the reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts is number 3 on my list of what the reasons why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And if, Saquon Barkley was the offense. The offense went as far as Saquon could take it. And the offense really went as far as the defense could take it. Both those things got to be back in play. And if they are back in play, then the Eagles will probably win a Super Bowl next year. But if they're just a little bit off, more so for the defense, it's going to be a little bit of a rough ride. And I don't think the Eagles are as deep as people think they are. I think the Eagles have a lot of second string players right now and not many first stringers, especially in some key positions along the defensive line and the linebacker play. I honestly do. And no one's paying much attention to that because it's Philadelphia, they're homers, and that's what they do. And can you really expect Saquon to rush for over 2,000 yards again next year? I think wasn't last year one of Saquon's only years that he actually made it through the season unscathed? He has a pretty interesting injury history. Can you expect that for him to carry that kind of load in 2025? I don't know, man. I just don't want to go into the season with all that uncertainty. You got to make sure you put yourself in a better position to win. And I don't think the Eagles have at this point. I really don't. I don't think Howie did enough heading into the season. And I'm telling you, I don't think he did enough. Anyway, 101. Then we're home again against the Rams in a divisional round playoff rematch. No snow in this game. And this should be a pretty fun game against the Rams. But I think at the end of the day, I think the Eagles find a way to win because I just don't believe in the Rams. I don't believe in Stafford. And I don't really believe in the Rams. So I think the Eagles find a way to win this game. So I got them now at 2-1 through week 3. Here's the interesting game. Another week 4 and another trip to Tampa Bay. Interesting situation there. Well, I don't know why it's week 4 and why we're always going to Tampa. But we're back in Tampa and it's back on week 4, just like it was last year. And I think just like last year, another humbling experience for the Eagles. And I think they get schwacked by the Buccaneers. So now they're 2-2, again, much like last year. Home against Denver the following week, which is a young, exciting team. Bo Nix is on his way. Denver's going to be probably back in the playoff mix again next year. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, but they're back. I think they're going to rise up. The AFC West is still known by the Chiefs, but Denver's going to make it interesting. So are the Chargers, but Denver will make it interesting. But I don't see Denver winning this game anyway. So I got the Eagles now 3-2. Now it's out to Minnesota against a completely unknown team. We have no idea what to expect from the Minnesota Vikings. McCarthy's going to be potentially the quarterback. I don't know. Maybe he's not. But I don't know nothing about the Minnesota Vikings. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give this a loss for the Eagles. Oh, I'm sorry. We go from Denver to the Giants. There's no way in hell that the Eagles lose this game. So the Eagles beat the Giants. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-2 now through 6 weeks. 4-2 through 6 weeks. Pretty good start, right, for the defending Super Bowl champions, I think. Eagles win by 3 in KC. Yeah, I think the Eagles get blown out. Tampa Bay scares me. They'll lose. When a Super Bowl winning quarterback can't even throw for 3,000 yards, when 4,000 is really the minimum these days, that's pretty bad. Don't tell some people out there who think he's elite. You better be careful with that, Barbara. So here we are, week 7 against the Minnesota Vikings. As I mentioned already, I think the Eagles lose that game. Then it's back home, week 8 against the New York Giants. I think the Eagles lose that game. I got the Eagles splitting with the NFC East, or not splitting. I got the Eagles kind of. I'll tell you. We'll let it play out. I think the Eagles lose that home game against the Giants. I do. I don't know. Letdown game. trap game, call it what you want. But I see them losing that game to the Giants. Then we're in the bye week. So we're in the bye week. We're 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. We're 4-4 in the bye week in week 9. 4-4 in the bye week. Minnesota doesn't have a quarterback. Joe, they don't have a quarterback right now. Again, like I said at the top of this exercise is completely fruitless because we're taking stuff that we know from 2024 and we're trying to make it fit for 2025. We don't know what McCarthy's going to be as a quarterback. Right now, they don't have a quarterback. You're right. But obviously, that's going to change. We don't know what type of quarterback. The proper thing to say is we don't know what kind of quarterback Minnesota has, right? That's the proper thing to say because we don't. Nobody does. That's why this is this is a really tough. This is tough. This is a tough exercise to do. But I got them 4-4 into the bye heading into week 9. Oh my God, losing the Giants at home, the boos will rain down a lot. Yeah. I'm not, listen, as I said, I can't have the Eagles going 6-0 through the NFC. So they're not going to do that. That's not going to happen. I think they were 5-1 last year. I think 4-2 is more of a legitimate record for them. So I'm just sort of kind of dispersing out the losses to teams within the division, except for the Cowboys, because I don't think they're going to. I don't want them to lose to the Cowboys at all, and I don't think they are. But the other two teams, I got to disperse some losses out to them. So, in reality, do they actually could they possibly lose at home to the Giants? Probably not. But again, I don't know. We don't know what the Giants are going to look like. Giants could be the next Commanders for all we know. Again, this is why this is so hard, and it's not easy, and it's really stupid if you think about it to do this. But I got them 4-4 into the bye week. Coming out of the bye week is when things get interesting, really interesting. Green Bay on Monday Night Football. Weather's going to start getting a little bit chilly. Football is going to be in the air. It comes into some of the great time. You know, it's perfect time. I love that time of the year. I think they lose in Green Bay. I do. I think they lose in Green Bay. Then they come back on Sunday Night Football at home against Detroit in the game that everyone's been looking forward to for years. And finally, we got the Lions. Should have had them on opening day. Finally, we get the Lions, and I think we lose. Sorry. I think we lose. I think we go back-to-back losses in Green Bay and at Detroit and home against Detroit. And that takes us to the Cowboys. Again, they'll beat the Cowboys because I don't want the Cowboys to win ever. Then they go on a run here. This is the start of a run for me in the schedule. I got them beating the Cowboys. I got them beating the Bears. I got them beating the Chargers. And I got them beating the Raiders. So a season that was somewhat kind of teetering on the abyss takes a complete turnaround for the Eagles as they rattle off 1, 2, 3, 4 wins in a row. And they are heading into the Washington Commanders game. The Week 16 game, I believe. Yep, the Commanders game at a ripe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 and 6 heading into that Commanders game. Now, in MattyB's estimate, I think the NFC East is lost by this point. I think the Raiders, the Redskins, are running away with the division. I think the Eagles are in a battle for a wild card position by this point of the season. There might be an outside chance to catch the Commanders in the division, but I don't think they are. I think the Commanders are in the driver's seat somewhat of the NFC East by now. But I still think they go into DC and they beat the Commanders on December 16th to make things that much interesting, a little bit closer. So now they're 9-6. Then they go to possibly the worst game on the schedule at the worst possible time of the year in the worst possible place to go play this game. Buffalo in late December. Nobody wants to go there, right? And I don't think this game, I think they get bowled over by Josh Allen and the Bills. So now I got them at 9-7. They come home against the Commanders, showing some face, showing some love. I don't know that maybe it's a win or get in situation for the Eagles, or the Commanders have already clinched and they sit everybody. I don't know, but I see the Eagles winning that game, beating the Commanders, final game of the year. I got them at 10-7. That is my final record. I'm sticking with it. 10-7 and going back to the playoffs as a wild card, like the 5th seed or 6th seed, something like that. like second seed, the second wild card seed. So there you have it. And this will change, obviously. Data will change. Things will come out to be a little bit more clearer as the season progresses and when we see what these teams are, to include what the Eagles are as the season moves forward. But to sit here and say on your high perch that there's no way that the Eagles could lose to this team or not beat this team or not go 15-2, that's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Can't say that in May. You have to actually go out and play these games because you don't know what the Eagles are going to be. Injuries that did not affect this team last year could affect them this year. The play of certain players that were masked by the play of other players might be put on display, i.e. your quarterback, who may have to actually be a quarterback and actually have to try to win you a game, which he's never done as an Eagle. So those things might come into play that weren't necessarily in play last year. Think back. How many times did Jalen Hurts have to pick the Eagles up on his shoulders last year and lead them to victory? That's okay. I'll wait. He didn't have to because other aspects of this team picked him up. Now, can you rely on that for another year? Or at some point, is your quarterback going to have to actually be a quarterback? And I don't think Jalen Hurts has it in him because I don't think he's elite. I think he's a very good above average game manager. So 10-7 is what I'm going with the Eagles right here. 10-7. I got the Eagles at 5-2 going to the bye. I meant 5-3. Okay. I mean, I could see 5-3. Right? Well, I got them 4-4. You got them 5-3. Yeah. I think we're all pretty much on the same path. I think the Eagles beat the Bills by 3. I don't know, Joe. I don't know how you see that. I'm scared of that game. I'm absolutely terrified of that game. And you know what also sucks about that game? It's an AFC game, second to the last week of the season. Since when are we? That's the game right there. That game right there is where I would like to have seen the Dallas game. If the NFL obviously probably put the schedule together, and maybe they had Buffalo as the original opening night team, and they were probably looking at the schedule like, you know what? What are the odds that Dallas Cowboys are any good on week 17? Probably not. So let's flip-flop Buffalo and Dallas. Let's put Buffalo as the second to last week of this. Because when was the last time you remember an Eagles schedule that had what? Division, AFC, and then division. What is the Buffalo Bill game doing sandwiched between those divisional games? I'm telling you, I think the computer spit this schedule out and it was flip-flopped with Buffalo as the opening game and Dallas as that week 17 game. And I think that they were like, no, that Dallas game might not mean anything. The Cowboys might be out of this. We got to make it more interesting. So let's put the Buffalo Bills in there. Let's switch Buffalo with Dallas. I'm telling you, I think that's what happened. I think we were earmarked to play the Buffalo Bills on opening night, and the NFL stopped it as they were reviewing the schedule, saying this is not going to work for us because we don't think Dallas is going to be any good by week 17. We got to make this more beneficial to us ratings wise. So let's switch Buffalo and let's switch Dallas. I'm telling you. But actually, no, that wouldn't have worked either because the Eagles had to start at home. I'm telling you, something doesn't seem right about that. Doesn't seem right about that to me. I'll say 12 wins, but yes, I could see 10 wins when you never know how things play out. Yeah. I think 10-7 is a lot better than what I gave him last year. I gave him 8-9, and I was down on this team terribly. 8-9. That's what I was going with. If the Eagles win 13 games, it's because of the Eagles defense. But Joe, do you trust the Eagles defense right now? Right now on paper. You say the Minnesota Vikings don't have a quarterback in May. Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't think the Eagles have a defense in May. Because the same questions the Minnesota Vikings are asking about their quarterback position, I'm asking about the entire defense. So if you look at it that way, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You want to bag on Minnesota for having no quarterback, which is true, then I'm going to bag on the Eagles for not having a defense, which is, in my eye right now, true. Until proven otherwise, same thing with Minnesota. So there you have it. MattyB's schedule release in the books. Woohoo. Woo, now I can die. 10-7. Eagles will be a wild card team in 2025. And the rest of that, you'll have to wait to the end of August to find out how far I see the Eagles going in this thing to the end. But there you are. That's out of our way. And now that we're another step through, another step closer to the start of the regular season. Yes, I trust Eagles defense. Okay. You trust Eagles defense. So you're not concerned that they lost 6 major components from the Super Bowl defense. And not 6 bench players. I'm talking 6 players that played a substantial role in them winning the Super Bowl. You're saying that we can replace Darius Slay, we can replace CJ, PJ, KJ, DJ, we can replace Milton Williams, we can replace Isaiah Rodgers, we can replace, Christ, who am I forgetting? Josh Sweat. We're going to replace all those guys with what we brought in through Class B free agents. Like when I say Class B, I mean second-tier free agents that nobody wanted, and unproven draft picks. And draft picks from previous years that have not had an opportunity to play that are all of a sudden going to round in the form this year. Even though the defensive coordinator said he doesn't care where a player is on the depth chart. If they prove their worth on the field, they will be on the field. You're putting all your trust into that? Now, listen, are some of my takes a little bit off the res? I'll give you that too. Sometimes I like to poke the bear too. Are you trying to poke the bear here, Joe? That makes no sense to me. They lost a lot off that defense. And mark my words, Joe Hale, and everybody else out there that might be listening and scoffing at me right now, mark my words, at some point mid-season, middle part of the season, 7, 8, 9, 10, around there, there's going to be conversation about the defense just isn't the same as it was last year. Mark my words. Now, the defense as it was didn't really kind of kick into high gear until about week 10 or 11. But they did kick in. Now, does it take them 9, 10, 11 weeks this year to kind of kick into high gear? Potentially. I don't know. And hopefully they can win some games. If that's the case, they can stay in this thing until it does happen. But mark my words, at some point, midpoint of the season, we're going to be sitting here talking about the defense just isn't the same as it was last year. And that's all it's going to take for this team not to repeat as Super Bowl champions, because the offense as itself, the offense as it is not capable of going out there and winning games on their own. They proved that last year. The coaches themselves scrapped the idea of any sort of prolific passing attack after the Tampa game prior to going into the bye and coming out against Cleveland. They decided we can't trust the quarterback to thread the ball into tight windows. We can't trust the quarterback to throw the ball to the middle of the field. We can't trust the quarterback to go through his progressions and find the open receiver in a timely manner. We can't do that. We got to find something else to do on offense. So we're going to hand the ball to our shiny new toy, which they should have been doing in the beginning, and Saquon Barkley, and it worked like gangbusters. So you're expecting the same thing. Steve Spagnuolo provided a blueprint. Now, whether or not the rest of the NFL sees it or listens to it, of how to stop Saquon Barkley. He provided that blueprint. And to go in thinking that Saquon's going to rush for 2,000 yards next year just because he's Saquon is ridiculous. The Eagles did not do enough in the offseason, in my opinion, to make an actual run at the Super Bowl. Legitimate run at the Super Bowl without the excuses coming out about why they are not doing it. Prove me wrong. And I hope they do. And unfortunately, we have to wait until the season to find out. But going into this season, I have a complete opposite view of everything that everybody else is hyped up about. I don't see where you replaced the players you lost on defense with the players you brought in. I can't see it. I fear that Zach Bond feasted last year because of who we had around him. And I hope that that's not the case. And I hope that he can stand on his own. Because he's going to have to. Because he's no longer going to come out of the shadows in a sneak attack. People and offenses are going to be scheming against him because of what the kind of year he had last year. Can he adapt to that and be a better player? Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, same thing. They are now going to be the focal point of that defensive secondary. They are going to be now get picked picked on every play. Can they stand up? Or did they ride the coattails of Darius Slay and CJ, GJ, TJ, PJ? We'll have to wait and see. But it's not a slam dunk, guaranteed, bona fide. It's a seamless transition. That's the point I'm trying to get through. There's a lot of things that could go wrong with this season. It could have been the wrong players brought here. It could be injuries. It could be other teams have figured the Eagles out. There could be a ton of things. That's why you don't really see too many repeat Super Bowl champions, because it gets a little harder. So it's not a slam dunk. Like a lot of these moron homers out there are walking around trying to sell you on. That is a slam dunk. They're going to go back and win another Super Bowl. It's not. It's a long road. Where is it at this year? It's out in Santa Clara. It's a long road to San Francisco. No, we're going to get to that here in a second. John McMullen, that fool thinks Hurts is a top 3 quarterback. He thinks passes for lots of yards. Yeah, I don't have, listen, Barbara, it's a sad day. It's sad. It really is that we can't just accept Jalen Hurts for what he is. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. I think he's a starter at this level, at this league. Yeah, of course he is. But elite. If I'm building an NFL team, if you're building an NFL team with the current crop of quarterbacks that are in the NFL right now, and you have the number 1 overall draft pick to pick any of the current players in the league right now, and you're going to go pick a quarterback, are you picking Jalen Hurts? No. You're probably not picking Jalen Hurts to like the 10th round. There's at least 10 quarterbacks better, in my opinion, than Jalen Hurts. At least. But again, he's a capable quarterback. But he's not capable of winning a Super Bowl, of putting the team on his shoulders, a la Tom Brady, a la Joe Montana, a la, Peyton Manning. He's not that type of quarterback. And that, my friends, is elite. Those are the elite quarterbacks, not Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, when this is all said and done with, Jalen Hurts is going to be considered, there's going to be an argument, and it's going to be so nauseating. There's going to be an argument in this town that Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in Eagle history because he won a Super Bowl. Of course, no one's going to give Nick Foles a time of day, but it's going to be because Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl that we're going to have to listen to the mindless Jalen Hurts people going on and on about how he's the best quarterback in Eagle history. It makes me cry. Super Bowl was on TV on the weekend game. What? Super Bowl was on TV on the weekend. The game was over before halftime. The defense dominated. Yes, absolutely, 100%. It was over at halftime. It was over before that. Zach Bond sucked before he came to the Eagles. He only played on special teams. Right. So was it the scheme that was put around him, or the players and the scheme that were put around him? And yes, he came out of nowhere. Teams weren't specifically planning for Zach Bond last year, but they're going to be planning for him this year. How does he handle that? We're not talking about that either. We're just saying, it's going to be like flipping a switch. It's like the Super Bowl, and then the next week we're going right back to work. It's the same season. No one's talking about that stuff, man. Yeah, he's got a very good O-line. Absolutely. So that's it. Eagles talk, schedule release, 10-7, wild card. And if you want to hear the rest of the story, you got to tune into the Birds Blast in late August. Not the Birds Blast on Monday, but late August, because on our first episode of every season, right before the start of the season, me and Kyle go through our predictions of who's going to win every division, who's going to come in last in every division, who are our wild card teams, our conference championship teams, our Super Bowl teams, and yes, our Super Bowl winner. So that will be in our August show, right like a week or so before the start of the season. So make sure you're tuned into that Birds Blast episode, but make sure you're tuned into the Birds Blast on Monday as we'll talk about free agency, the draft, and yes, and the schedule release. So Kyle will be back with me on Monday night. And don't forget about the Eagles post-game show, the Birds Flyby, here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network, that will return for season 2. We don't have a host. Sal was the host, but Sal was on sabbatical. So we're talking that right now. So we're gonna figure out who the new host will be. I can tell you who it won't be. It will not be me. I will not be hosting the Eagles post game show. I have way too many hands into way too many post game shows as it is. So it's going to be a fresh face, somebody else other than me. You may see me pop on that thing every now and again as a co-host, but I will not be the host of the Birds Flyby. But one of the valued members of the network will. So we're working on that right now. So don't forget about the post game show too. Honestly, the Eagles are pretty lucky on injuries, etc. They were very lucky on injuries last year. Absolutely lucky on injuries. I think I can guess the playoff teams after a few games already. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. By like week 7, you can tell. We all know who's going to the playoffs. I agree. I agree. All right, let's change the topic. Flyers are back in the news. Tomorrow at 10:30, the Flyers will hold an official meet and greet with their new head coach, Rick Tocchet, your 25th head coach in Flyer history. Tocchet will join the Flyers after a stint with the Vancouver Canucks that ended on a, I guess, mutual parting of the ways from the Canucks. The same thing that ended his time with the Arizona Coyotes as well, a mutual parting of the ways. Tocchet is a obviously an all-time Flyer, a member of the Flyers Hall of Fame. Played parts of 2 stints here with the team throughout his career. Embodied that type of Flyer that we all think know and love. And as a player, as a coach, coached in Tampa, and Arizona, and Vancouver. Not very he doesn't move the needle for me as a coach. Actually, he didn't move the needle for me as a player either. 638 career coach games as a head coach in the NHL. 286 wins and 265 losses and 87 overtime loss or ties, or however you want to cut that up. 2 playoff appearances in all his time as a head coach. And the furthest he's made it in the playoffs was the second round back in 23-24 last year when he was the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. Now, that was, of course, also the year that he won the Jack Adams Award as the best coach in the NHL. But now he is, a year later, out of a job or fired from Vancouver. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I know there's a lot of talk about this might not be the right guy and whatnot. And there's been a lot of discussion about his coaching style. And I think it's foolish to think that his coaching style is in any way mirrors his playing style. I mean, he's not a fool. Dump and chase doesn't work anymore, right? And I think it's interesting to know that this could be all part of like a systematic way to get through these players. So whoever they bring in here, whoever it was, it would be Tocchet, Lappy, Carl, anybody who they decided to bring in, was going to be a night and day to John Tortorella. Just like anybody was going to be starkly different than John Tortorella. So right off the bat, that changes the whole dynamic of the team. That opens things up right off the bat. It unclenches the butt cheeks, so to speak, of the Flyer players right off the bat. So to be honest with you, to me, this coach or this particular coach at this particular time in Flyers history is a mulligan for me, because I don't expect Tocchet to be here when this team is a Stanley Cup champion either, right? But this is a next step in getting this team to where they got to be. You had the disciplinarian, you had the father figure, the whipping chair, John Tortorella, who led with an iron fist. Now you got the players coach, who lets players, who's demanding but fair, who emphasizes a lot of detail work, focuses on hard work, doesn't yell, and as a player's coach, he adapts somewhat. I'm not going to buy this completely, but he does try to look at a player and what they can do well, and he tries to work that into the system, not the other way around. And he also prioritizes hard work and execution. But he's fair, and he's a player's coach, and very personable, and he relatable to the players. So it's almost like you're going to have a John Tortorella light, but that's still night and day from what you just went through. So regardless, honestly, of who the next coach is of the Flyers, it was going to be somebody different than Tortorella which is a good thing for the team as they move forward. Now, the Tortorella effect, will that kind of lead to some success for this team like it did sort of at the end of the season? It might. We might be a little bit further away from that now, but it could. But Tockett's Tockett. It doesn't move the needle for me. I don't think he's a great head coach. I don't think he's a terrible head coach. I just think he's the next man up in this in what we need. But and I'm going to leave it on this, my little spiel on this, right with this part. I don't care if they brought in a lump of clay as the head coach. Right now, again, for me, specifically for me, at this particular moment in Flyers history, we need players. I'm not really interested or concerned about the coach right now because we don't have a team. He doesn't have anybody to coach. I need some talent. Bring me some talent to this team. Let's get some players here, and then we can talk about getting the right coach. Right now, it's just another step in the rebuild. You went from the hardcore disciplinarian to the players coach and Rick Tocchet. So I think it's going to work for the Flyers. But at the end of the day, it's all about talent. I said this a few weeks ago or last week or a couple of days ago. I'm not focused at all on the coaching situation because the coach is irrelevant to me. He won't be here when this thing all kind of comes to a head. He won't. Danny B is the focus for me this offseason. His work, what he does, the things he does is what primarily drives my train right now. I need some talent. I need him to go out and draft well. I need a top 6 draft pick that's a day one contributor. I need him to take some of those other draft picks and creatively try to work out some trades to bring in some talent for today. I need him to spend wisely that free agent money on some players that could potentially help this team in the short term. That's what I want to see because right now you could have Fred Shearer as your head coach and he still would lose because there's nobody to coach on this team. So the coach is just I don't think the Flyers necessarily wanted to actually have a new head coach at this particular moment in time. I really don't. It's just obviously things with Tortorella got to a point where they couldn't take him anymore and they had to move on. But in a sane world with a sane head coach, he still has a job for next season because the coaching situation for the Flyers wasn't a priority. It's building the friggin' team that's the priority. So Tocchet comes here kind of on house money, if you ask me. Really does. I could care less, honestly, what he does. I am not going to look at the Flyers and judge Rick Tocchet next year. No, unless, of course, he's got really good players. Then I might. But right now, how can I? Just like I really couldn't judge John Tortorella because he didn't really have a real team. It's a whole different situation when you're trying to rebuild a team, and that's why I kind of was leaning towards more of a teacher. Tocchet's been in the NHL. Okay, he's had a smattering of success. He won the Jack Adams. But he's not gotten no farther than the second round of the playoffs, and had to leave 2 jobs under mysterious circumstances of just mutual parting of the ways. What's going on there? So I get it. But I'm not really concerned about Rick Tocchet. I really don't. And he's just another step. But he is your new head coach, and tomorrow at 10:30, the Flyers will formally introduce him as the new Flyers head coach. Make sure you're checking it out. I can guess. Oh, yeah. That one. I love Rick as a player, but I don't know his coaching style. I just kind of gave you his coaching style sort of in a nutshell. Attention to detail, hard work ethics, but very relatable. Talks, not a yeller. He's not that type of fiery personality. And he has a tendency, as what I've seen and what has been reported, that he tries to fit a player into what a player can do and not what the system can do for the player. So he tries to tailor the system to the player's needs, which is a big thing, especially with a young team like the Flyers. Tocchet is just a gap filler that the young guys are ready to come up. Yeah. He's just another body right now. Lappy was asked if he could still coach the Phantoms and Danny. Oh, of course. Yeah, even though they kind of let me down in the playoffs. God damn, man. Can't beat Hershey. I used to like Ken Hitchcock and Peter Lafayette as coaches. I still do. By the way, the Union Iron Pig games was on TV in Jersey. Yeah, it was I watched it here too. Painter looked good tonight. Looked really good. 60 pitches, something like that. 5 innings. No, yeah, 5 innings. Pretty good for Painter as the Pigs won their 30th game of the year. 30-12. 30-12. But there you have it. There's our Flyers, our Eagles point. Let's continue the carousel. Let's get into our worst trades in Phillies history, MattyB style. We started this last week. I have created the 10 worst trades, in my opinion, in Phillies history, and we're going to go talk about them as we move up the list. We're going to go from 10 to 1. We started with 10. I'll remind everybody what 10 was. It was the Freddie Garcia trade for Gio Gonzalez and Gavin Floyd. It was the Hunter Pence trade, bringing him here, actually. Right? Bringing him here? Yep. Because I thought it was the wrong player to bring in, and it started a trend of dismantling our farm system. So that takes us to number 8. Now, number 8 is also in the vein of just not getting enough in return for a commodity player that we had at that time. The only talent basically we had on the Phillies at this period of time, it was critical, I thought, that we got something for this guy, and we did it. And here it is. Your number 8. MattyB's all-time worst trade in Phillies history. Ken Giles was traded to the Houston Astros along with Jonathan Orazes for Mark Appel, Vince Velasquez, Brett Oberschulzer, Tom Isselman, and Harold Aruzes. No relation. Now, Giles in 2015 was a lockdown, bona fide closer. I would kill to have him on the team now. But it was a commodity for that team in 2015 to have such a player because we barely used them because we were barely in a situation to where we needed a closer because we were so bad. So it was one of those situations where the Phillies, not looking to win anytime soon, had an opportunity to flip a known MLB commodity in Ken Giles to a team and get some like assets and some young talent to build around. But once again, it became a theme with this team over about a 10-year period of just missing with everything that they ever tried to bring here, with the exception in this trade of Vince Velasquez, who was the only one who showed like a smattering of potential for like 2 or 3 starts and then fell off the damn apple truck. This is one of the worst trades, I think, ever in any sport. There was absolutely nothing in return for what we gave up and what we got back. And Vince Velasquez, man, he banged around here for years before the Phillies finally moved off of him. Good God, what a bad pitcher. What a terrible pitcher. But I think, wasn't his first game, he struck out like 15 batters, his first ever start as a Philly. And that was like the best he ever did. But the Ken Giles trade was, again, an exercise in not understanding how to read a minor league system. You gave up a known MLB commodity, a luxury for your team, yes, but not a luxury for the other teams that wanted to get a lockdown closer. Now, Giles would have a pretty decent time with the Astros, but then his career kind of unraveled pretty quickly after that. But the Phillies got absolutely nothing in return for this guy. And just one of those trades where we missed. And it's really, there's a lot of these types of trades at this type of time frame on this list because this was such a bad period of time for the Phillies, not only in the players that they had, but when they tried to move off some players and the players they got back, there was just miss after miss after miss. This is terrible. And this is one of the all-time misses. The Ken Giles trade going to Houston for nothing in return. And there you have number 8, Ken Giles. What do you think about Ken Giles, everybody? Remember him? Noah would look nice on the Pigs. Yeah, Mick Abel would look nice here. Vince Velasquez was vastly overrated and the Phillies were so bad. Look, but what is his first game? He struck out like 18. I remember that game. And that was it. That was it. Fell apart for him. I remember Vince Velasquez playing the outfield when they were. Yes, I remember that too. Was Hoskins much better than Tommy Joseph? You know what? I don't know. And Tommy Joseph is on this list. Yes, he is. He's on this list as we move through it. There you go. Number 8, Ken Giles to the Houston Astros for garbage of the hot variety. All right. Let's go to the other night segment. All right, we're back for the of the night segment. Tonight, we're going to head back to the Phillies. We're going to head back to one of the hot topics of the Phillies right now is, of course, all the prospects we're talking about. We just went over a trade of just terrible prospects. And tonight, we're going to go back into the Phillies minor league system. Tonight, I think he's like the 15th overall prospect in the Phillies system. Right-hand pitcher Alex McFarland of the Clearwater Thrashers. Scouts have long thought McFarland could have a chance to start because of his size, elite arm strength, and a legitimate 3-pitch max. It starts with his fastball that touches triple digits, and a move to a 2-seamer has worked with his low arm slot and has allowed him to get ground ball outs in 2023. He can miss bats with his upper 80 slider, a breaking ball that flashes plus, and his split changeup was improving before he got shut down with an elbow injury, which was not Tommy John. McFarland was a 2022 draft pick for the Phillies, a 4th-round pick, pick number 122 overall, and he came out of the University of Miami. So far in the early part of this season, he's 0-3 with a 4.39 ERA in 7 games. 7 games started, 26.5 innings pitched with 28 strikeouts and a whip of 1.35. And he's playing with Jersey Shore now, by the way. He's not with he is not in low A. He is up in high A with the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. One of the more talented younger arms, very raw. McFarland was probably, I shudder when I think of some of these lower, like I don't want to say lower level players, but lower tier players the Phillies have in their system. They're all going to get shipped out of here this year. I know they are. I know that Fool Dombrowski is going to pull the plug on a lot of these kids. And going through this top 10 list of worst trades, it just sort of like heightened that awareness of me about, getting rid of some of these players for stuff that's not going to work for us. And Alex McFarland is one of them. He is nowhere near major league ready, and he probably won't be for about 3, maybe 4 seasons. But he does have the stuff, as I mentioned, a big kid with a big arm, dealing with some, coming back from an injury. So, but he was able to move up to high A after just 1 season in low A. So there is some upward mobility in him, but it's a long road to the top if you want to rock and roll, if you know what I mean. And Jersey Shore is by no means anywhere near Philadelphia, but definitely someone to keep an eye out on. Alex McFarland, a right-hand pitcher starter by trade, as he is about the 15th overall prospect in the Phillies system right now. And there you have it. The of the night segment, Philly pitching prospect Alex McFarland. Ricky keeps looking for you on Facebook. And yeah, I know. Facebook has some technical problems tonight, so we are not streaming off of Facebook tonight. I do apologize for everybody out there that's looking for us on Facebook. We are not there. Not tonight. We're having some technical issues with Facebook, but we are on Twitter, and we, of course, are on YouTube. So look for us on those places. Nuggets force Game 7 with T-Wolves await the winner. I'm digging the way the West has gone, man. I'm digging it, man. Oh, my God. Did you reference? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I did, Barbara. All right. Let's move on to our final segment and the best segment of the day, of my week. Look forward to it every single day. Yeah, MattyB's card review. I want to say the last time we did it, the other night, we went back into baseball, 87 tops. Well, get comfortable because we're staying in 87 tops with an iconic pitcher of not necessarily my era growing up. I caught him at the tail end of his career when I was growing up. But then again, I caught Carl Yastrzemski at the tail end of his career too. I caught more of this guy, I guess, in my youth than I did Yastrzemski. But definitely one of the all-time best pitchers ever to play the game, primarily for the Mets. So I know. But any baseball card you can pick up of this guy is valuable to a fault. You're not making millions of dollars with this card, but you would make millions of dollars with his rookie card. But anytime you can pick up a commodity with this man's name on it, it works out for you. And that, of course, I speak of the 87 Tom Seaver. The final year, this was his final baseball card ever. It was pulled off of the 86 stats when he pitched for Boston, the one lone year he pitched for the Boston Red Sox, almost kind of making his tour around Major League Baseball by this point. Terrific Tom, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. How many years was he in the league for? Good God, like 1,000? I mean, debuted in the MLB in 1967 and last pitched in September of 86. A career 3.11 and 2.05 record, a career 2.86 ERA. He had a career ERA under 3. Over 3,640 strikeouts. Played for the Mets, Reds, Mets again, White Sox, and then finished up his career with the Red Sox. A 12-time All-Star, a World Series champion for the Miracle Mets, a 3-time NL Cy Young Award winner, NL Rookie of the Year, 3-time NL wins leader, 3-time NL ERA leader, 5-time NL strikeout leader, pitched a no-hitter, only one in his career in 1978. His numbers retired by the Mets, the Reds. He's also in the Mets and Reds Hall of Fame, and of course, a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, class of 1992, on a 98.6 ballot, first ballot vote. So, Terrific Tom is your card of the night. This card, as I mentioned, the value for me on this card is it's his final one. This is his last baseball card. When he pitched for the Red Sox in 86, it's the iconic 87 Topps. The wood paneling borders, just a classic card design. I say that every time we go over 87 Topps cards, and when you find a card like this, like a Tom Seaver, where there's no more other, I'm not saying that this rivals his rookie card. In no means am I saying this. You can, I could probably move this card legitimately, probably move it for about $5, right? And in the wax pack era that it was. But it's Tom Seaver, for God's sakes, and it's Tom Seaver's final baseball card. These are special cards to me because this was the start of the end of eras for me. So players like Seaver, Schmidt were the first to go down that I knew growing up. Now all of a sudden their careers are over. I'm like, what the hell? What are you doing? So anytime I run across any Tom Seaver memorabilia, card or otherwise, I put it to the side, and I put this one to the side. So 87 Tom Seaver is your card review of the night. Again, $5, maybe I can move it for. If there's a Tom Seaver fan out there. But yeah, nice. I researched him a lot. He was one of the very best ever. He was Terrific Tom, man. I met him in the Camden River Sharks game. Really? Did you get his autograph? Did you bring a baseball card for him to sign? Oh man, it's good stuff. And set your calendars. Countdown is on. July of 2028. Pete Rose's enshrinement into the Hall of Fame. We will be broadcasting live from Cooperstown, New York that day. I promise you that right now. So there you go. Tom Seaver's the card of the night. And that's going to take me to the final part, or the final ending of our show for the week. That's it. No more final words. We are done until Sunday. We'll be back to kick off a new week with new things to discuss. Top 10 list still rolling on. Number 7 on Sunday night. As we get deeper into this, who's going to be next of the worst trades in Phillies history, according to MattyB, and all the great programming you have here on the It's a Rep Sports Network, to include, not limited to, of course, the Fighting's final. Tomorrow night, the Phillies are back at it against the Pittsburgh Pirates in the Get Well series that I think everyone is looking at it as. Big Al has you on Friday, and then you're going to get a double dose of me on Saturday and Sunday. So a lot of work for me to do this weekend with the post games, and then, of course, my show on Sunday night. So there's the Fighting's final schedule. Tomorrow night at 10:30, we're not done broadcasting because Pat Bernard will return with the wraparound at its new home and its new time, Friday at 10:30 p.m. So look out for the wraparound. And on Sunday morning at 9, your Sunday mornings will not be the same as Pat Bernard and Mike Lauro will be, and also Al Severi will bring you the PNM and the AM program on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. And then other stuff here. Of course, Monday night is the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn. I'll be back on Sunday with the final word, and the Attacking Third was just preceded me tonight. So a lot of great entertainment here on the network as we continue to build this and grow this thing through what we got to do. Matty, it seems that because Pete is getting in that, they will push Clemens and Sad over that. One day at a time, Barbara. Let's take that one day at a time. All right. Clemens has got to die. I mean, isn't it right? That's the rule. Well, Clemens is not banned. Nah, he's not getting in. Don't forget, Clemens gets voted in by a different committee than Rose. It's a different committee. So we'll see. Pat fixes Wi-Fi. We'll see. I thought his Wi-Fi was good last week until he did the show. Then it was all crappy again. So we'll see. Maybe it's something to do with Sunday mornings in his part of the world. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see if he rectified it, Joe. We'll definitely be keeping tabs of that. I'll be keeping tabs of that. Everybody, I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a great tomorrow. I hope you have a great weekend. And we will talk again. I'll see you on the Fighting's Final on Saturday. But we'll be back here on the Final Word this Sunday night at 10 p.m. as we'll get ready to go for another week. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for tuning in. Until we talk again later, have a great night, rest of your day, and a fantabulous weekend. Talk to you later.